When you're more junior, it's like, hey, here's the job I'm asking you to do. I did it well, or I didn't do it well. And then now it's like, you're a little more senior. Now here's the 4 jobs I'm asking you to do. I did it well, I didn't do it well. Now it's like, hey, you're leading a team. Those things change.
Hey friends, welcome to Smart Venture Podcast, the best information for future CEOs. Starting a company is easy, but growing and managing it is hard. In this podcast, we sit down with the best founders, experienced leaders, and investors in tech and relevant space to give you the best tips to grow your company and grow yourself. Some of our most popular episodes are about crypto founders and investors. Check out our new podcast called Keeping Up with Crypto on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe and give it a 5-star. This episode is brought to you by Momento NFT. Momento NFT is a direct-to-fan social NFT app that allows fans to own viral moments from their favorite creators and unlock perks like meet and greets, autographed merchandise, and more. As a creator, you can easily create valuable images and video NFTs of your best social content. And as a fan, you can own viral moments from your favorite creators and unlock perks like meet and greets. Momento NFT is backed by Annie Mocha brand, Cadenza, and Mark Pincus. Check out the app available on App Store and Google Play. Hi, Todd. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
You are probably one of the most relatable executive on the internet. I love your LinkedIn status, and I loved your talk with Gary Vee and Richard, who is another guest on our show before, and in NFTYC back in time, like a year ago, maybe almost a year ago. And then you're just such a lively person. And to start off the show, I would give the audience the TLDR of some of the memorable moments that I've learned from your past interview. Like when you were a student, you create a ad organization, ad shop in your campus. So I actually did a super similar thing in my high school. So I created an English newspaper, and then I just asked all my friends to contribute to sell it to our moms, basically. And then you did on a way larger scale in college. You basically matched the marketer on campus to create some sort of internship experience for them, as well as helping the local brands to, get free, or cheaper marketing help in general. I feel those are some really great entrepreneurial initiative that you've done early on in your career. You just have as Tom Cruise in Risky Business, in one of the holiday parties from your company, and then you really know how to stand out. I feel as a marketer, you have to do that, right? You have to market yourself. And then the third one is you reach out to the CEO of Pepsi back in time when she was giving a talk on campus. You were like, hey, do you guys hire marketers? And then she sent you to the CMO, which was, I feel you were just really always I want to say hustling. I don't really know if that's a good word, but I feel I'm hustling, right? I feel you're definitely a role model. And then, so those are some really interesting things that you've done early on that kind of make you stand out, in my opinion. And, you also worked at the US Olympic Committee, or the internship. And then later on, you just went into sports marketing. And then, right now you're CMO of Pepsi. That's a TLDR for the audience.
Yeah, no, listen, first of all, you've definitely done your research, and you got all the goods now. And, yeah, and the Tom Cruise thing, just so you know, with Risky Business, I did not dress up for a holiday party. That would be highly inappropriate. No, it was basically, we had a thing called the Intern Bash, where it's actually, ironically, today we're having our intern barbecue here at PepsiCo. I'm about to go after this out to that, where we celebrate all our interns for the summer. But my year, they, it used to be more of hazing is the wrong word, but they'd make us do silly stuff and have some fun. And they had a 1980s fashion show, and everyone, someone dressed up like Madonna and, Don Johnson from Miami Vice and all this. And so I said, I'll do Risky Business. And so wore some tidy whities and a white button down and some socks, and did a whole little song and dance thing, and just kind of put myself out there. But I'm convinced that's the only reason I got hired.
I feel that's the only reason you're the CMO. I'm just kidding. No, I don't think that's the only reason. I think you've done so much amazing things later on we'll talk about. So I think I think you're overall, I feel like you're just like such a creative person and then super like just like relatable. And I feel like when it comes to like, you know, building a really successful career, I assume you probably have a lot of managers or like people that in your life that you consider as like board of advisors. Who do you consider as your personal board of advisors, or maybe not,
Yeah.
if not who, maybe like how do you kind of like select them?
I think that's a great question. And I think you know, no great leader does anything alone, right? And you always have your team, obviously, you have your peers, and then you have all your behind the scenes. Obviously, you know, at home, obviously my wife and my family and my kids obviously are my kind of center of gravity, like many people, and bounce other things off, and you need a good support network of friends. And then you also need some different mentors and people. And the great news of working for so long at a place like PepsiCo is there's so many talented people who've come through the halls and are off doing other great things. And
Mhm.
really great kind of PepsiCo alumni network where I still regularly connect with a lot of great people who are now CMOs of other companies or doing really cool stuff. And you know, we always have had our time together here, and it's always good to get sounding board and best practices. One thing that PepsiCo prepares you well for is because it's such a big company and you're always rotating around different roles throughout the company is, you know, you always have different people who like, you have your people who like, oh, you have really good relationship, then that person leaves. And then it's like, well, where's your people?
Mhm.
You have to make friends with a lot of different people and relate with a lot of different people, work with a lot of good managers, bad managers, people, this and that. And you really understand this idea of matrix management and how to collaborate. And, you know, and that's where also, as you build your alumni network or how to kind of build relationships longer standing, it's good to kind of get that perspective.
Totally. I was wondering, as when it comes to like skills that you need to be like the CMO, I feel like there's so many great marketing people out there, like even American agencies, but like I feel like there's only, you know, like one like Pepsi CMO, right? Like there's just like, you know, there's only, I would say like top 10 iconic brands across the globe. Everywhere else, like I'm pretty sure like everywhere people knows about Pepsi. So I think that just like, you know, what do you think like separate yourself apart from like a great marketing person to, you know, being the leader of the crowd?
Yeah, listen, it's a lot of these things, you know, a lot of it's being in the right place at the right time with the right experience, the right perspective, the right time to apply those kind of things. And so there's a lot of serendipity that comes in any kind of role. But I'd say a lot of it is also knowing, you know, I've had a career where a lot of calculated risk taking, I would say,
Mhm.
is done, and a brand that kind of needed its mojo back. You know, when I came onto the Pepsi brand, it's funny in my career story, you know, I've bounced around a number of different roles within PepsiCo and tried a bunch of things. Before this brand, I was on a water portfolio where I had to actually create a couple brands, LifeWTR, BUBLY, some of these other brands. And coming on to Pepsi at the time, you know, while water was growing, the Pepsi brand was in a tailspin. It had been a decade over plus of declines. It kind of had lost its way. It had kind of had some big public missteps and stuff. And so they're like, hey, figure it out. And so what I've found is, you know, my last few assignments between this one, my water assignment, and then even on food service before that, like they've been a bit of turnarounds or kind of, hey, help
Mhm.
fix something's broken. How can you do this? And I really started to realize that creatively, I've always been very creative and love coming up with crazy ideas and new ways of looking at stuff. But bringing that with the strategic rigor of, you know, how to systematically solve creative big hairy problems and lead a large organization through a tough time into a good time and really change our paradigm has been great. And on Pepsi, it's been a really great turnaround where we now have had 16 straight quarters of sales growth. You know, that's 4 straight years of growth on a brand that's been declining for over a decade, which is awesome. And our equities at seeing all-time highs and its growth. And then so I feel really great about it. But it's been I think a lot of it is this ability, like I said, to see around the corner and understand, you know, how to kind of filter out a lot of the noise and bullshit that comes with it from a lot of other stakeholders internally and externally of what to do. And then how to figure out how to excite everybody to go march after that.
Totally. What do you think is like one skill that you're constantly trying to get better at?
I think it's one of the things that's always something is around, at a company like this, you got to bring everybody along on the journey with you. And it's something I'd say early in my career, I did not do that well at all because I would get to something very quickly. I'd want to go and boom, boom, boom. And I'm very just scrappy and would just kind of want to make something happen. Right. And she realizes you can still get it done, but it's not great if you're just like, oh, get out of the way. We got what you need to do at PepsiCo, there's so many stakeholders, which is a great thing. And also can slow you down at times too. And as somebody who likes to move quick and whose brain moves very quickly on a lot of this stuff, I've learned over the years to really slow down, bring everybody along on the journey with you, whether it's your legal team, your R&D team, supply chain, finance, all the other stakeholders that you got to bring with you. And it's that much more rewarding when you get a good win and everybody was on the journey alongside you and they're sharing the vision of success with you versus, hey, you're just making it happen. So that's been a really great learning that I've continued to refine.
Yeah, totally. I feel like you're like super successful in like, I guess like three category of things. Like number one is like, I think you're just like super creative. For example, like the Pepsi, like I was like literally like I was trying to buy like I was trying to buy a Peeps to make my own Pepsi. But and anyway, so like I feel like the Pepsi is really fun. Like you guys launch NFTs. And then in general, like you did like a lot of really creative things, like the wild cherry dating show or like the Bravo like rose. Basically, you guys did like a lot of like really amazing, innovative like campaigns, and you call that like culture in instead of brand out, like which is like I personally like got really inspired for it. And then number two is like I think you did like really interesting things such as like you were just like a very entrepreneurial, like you mentioned, like you grew like bubbly, like you kind of like built a brand instead of a brand technically. And then the other part is like I feel like it sounds like you're a really great manager, as like you're right now you're leading the team now, like right in the past like you were the person coming up with the campaigns, but now you're like leading a team. So today like I would love for you to like share with us on like how do you grow from a branch manager or like managing one brands to like managing the most iconic brands.
Yeah, it's a great question. And listen, there's a lot there too of a lot of the fun, we can come back to some of the culture and all that kind of stuff too. But I'd say, some of the best advice that was given to me around leadership at one point was this idea of what got you here won't get you there. And the concept is pretty simple. And as I've internalized it, and as I've even shared with you when I was much more junior, how I would approach things, and as now you're much more senior, how you approach things, it's not the same metric of success, right? When you're more junior, it's like, hey, here's the job I'm asking you to do. I did it well, or I didn't do it well. And then now it's like, you're a little more senior. Now here's the 4 jobs I'm asking you to do. I did it well, I didn't do it well. Now it's like, hey, you're leading a team. Those things change. And so the way I talk about it to my team now is, and I'm a big sports nut, I think, and so I use this sports analogy to kind of describe it. And because it's a great way to kind of crystallize the concept, I think, really interestingly. And so I'm a big basketball fan. I don't know if you're an NBA fan at all, Grace, but if you think about it, all right, you come in as a rookie and you're just kind of like trying to figure it out. Maybe you're on the bench, you're observing, you're at the practice, you're learning how it all goes, and maybe you contribute a couple points a game, you do a couple things here and there. Then you start to become a role player on the team. As you get a little bit more, you have your role, you have your projects, you figure it out, you get your points, your rebounds, same kind of thing. Eventually, then you become a starter. You're a very valuable member of the team. You're crushing your projects, all of that. And then even you get to the point where you're the captain. Now you're still the best player on the floor, but you're doing it and all that. Up until that point, the metric for success is the same. It's kind of like, okay, can you score? Can you rebound? Can you pass? Can you do all the fundamentals? The second you go from captain to then head coach, you take off your sneakers and you put on some loafers, you put on some slacks and a tie and hold a clipboard. All of a sudden, nobody gives a crap if you can make a 3-pointer or you can score, right? It's about how you run the plays and how you get the people who are wearing the uniforms to do this stuff. And that's a very different, like, oh my gosh. So what got you here, what you see is a lot of people run and get up to a certain point of their career. And then they hit a wall and they realize, oh my gosh, I can't get to that next part unless I flip what success is. And then again, it happens again. exponentially. When you go from coach to general manager, now you're not from the sidelines. Now you're sitting up in the suite and you're hiring people and you're doing all that kind of stuff. Then we go from general manager to owner, what's important. And so every step of the way, the paradigm will change on what success looks like. And so and sometimes the best players aren't the best coaches and the best coaches aren't the best players, right? And so taking that insight to heart and really thinking about is where you are in your career and how to adjust what success looks like. It's not always about, running the fastest or putting up the most points or whatever it is. As you get to different levels, it's about how you coach the other people to do that well. And while at the same time, lead by example on a lot of that too. So I thought that was a good thing of what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah, totally. For sure. I think that's like such a great lesson. So actually, I'm just curious, like as a CM of Pepsi, like what's your day-to-day like? I'm sure it's like a pack with meetings, but like I'm just curious, like so how much of times do you like kind of spend on like, launching the next strategy or like brainstorm strategy? And then how much of it we're like executing? Because as you mentioned, there's so much people involved in like different departments. Like how do you kind of, you talk about like get past the no because of like, like everything is a yes, but because no, it's like just like you need more information kind of thing. So like I'm curious, like how do you structure your day and then how much is into like strategy and execution?
Yeah, every day is different, which is why I love marketing. It's also why I hate marketing, but it's one of those things where it gets real crazy, but it goes through ebbs and flows, right? Like we just came off a time of our year with our planning cycle where we're planning for next year and we're conveying to all of our sales counterparts, here's the things we're going to do next year, the new innovation, the new this, the new that, the new campaign, whatever that is. While at the same time, in parallel, we have stuff going out the door next week. We have things that are more capability building around creative excellence is a work stream I'm very passionate about to really help with our employees. And, this morning, for example, just helped show a lot of our global counterparts, some of the case study we did with Better with Pepsi and the stuff we did at Cannes and all that. And so just there's a lot of different facets from capability building to execution stuff to even just, again, a lot of times we get called into the principal's office, which is like, hey, sales are doing this and that. What's happening with the business? A lot of people don't appreciate it, especially in the marketing community. Like we're running the business over here for Pepsi too. So I'm neck deep in sales data, talking to, Walmart and Kroger and all our customers out there and, working with our food service partners and a number of other very commercial focused elements, as well as all the fun marketing stuff, as well as the innovation, coming up with new products. We're doing tastings with R&D. We do all sorts of stuff, which keeps it really interesting.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So I'm curious, let's use like Pepsi as an example. So like, do you come up with the idea in the marketing department or does it come up the idea from product? Like how does it get like launched?
No. It's a great question. And so Pepsi and, and you mentioned Pepsi Rosé and a lot, maple syrup Pepsi. We've done all of these like crazy fun things. And the concept, really started back. I have this concept, I call it like the culture bomb, is what we call it in entertainment. It's basically this idea of dropping a bomb in culture that will create a ripple of organic earned media and social media chatter. And why it's important to us as a category is people aren't always talking about cola every day, right? And it drives conversation about our category and top of mind awareness and things that are in relevant ways. And it's also a nice way to reward and engage our core fans, like sneaker drop kind of culture with these collectibles and stuff. And so something like Pepsi or any of these, they always start with a consumer insight. I always want to start everything with a real insight. And a cultural truth. And so Peeps, obviously around Easter time are a thing, and the nice, lovely marshmallow, bright yellow, pink, blue candies that, I can't get enough of, certainly during Easter. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to, especially we launched Pepsi during the spring that was kind of coming out of COVID and everyone was starting to kind of, come outside a little bit more and just needed some fun, like levity. Everything was so heavy and life was just very serious. And so we created this fun designed Pepsi or Pepsi Peeps cola, which is a marshmallow flavored cola with these fun little mini cans and bright colored designs. And, we could give them out to people who exuded what, again, is important to our brand, what we call unapologetic enjoyment. So people who could hashtag hanging with my peeps, and would show that they're, how they're going to enjoy themselves in the springtime and do a lot of this fun stuff. And thing just went crazy. I think it got like 13 billion earned media impressions or something like that. I think it got more PR coverage, I think our PR team was saying, than the J-Lo and Shakira halftime show we did, which is crazy. It was on every late night show and all that. And again, these things were selling for $1,000 on eBay, and it's fun. And sometimes it's just fun to kind of create like a little sliver of culture, even if it's like a fun little culture bomb like that. We do that as a model where we do a handful of those a year, little surprise product drops, in addition to kind of our general programming that we have a bunch of fun ones in the pipeline too.
Yeah, totally. I feel like this is like extremely clever as like you're dropping a product, but it's like a kind of like free organic advertising for the company. And I'm curious, like, there's so many like different tiers of things like as a marketer you guys do in like Pepsi, right? Like, so number one is like you guys create these like really interesting products. And then number two is like you guys are doing a lot of like big events, for example, the halftime shows or like those really iconic moments. And then the number three, it's like I feel like there's like just like creative commercials. So for example, you guys did with like McDonald's or like Wendy's and like those like tiny like paper made like like Pepsi was always there message. So I thought those were really interesting. Like how do you kind of like plan your, I guess, like OKR or KPI or something, like as like like what are you trying to achieve from each pillar to like have like a cohesive strategy?
Yeah, no, and it's a great question. And we just went through it with our team and all our agencies again yesterday, just to kind of re-enlist everybody. But we have a very tight strategy on how we're going to grow the brand. We use this framework called How Brands Grow, which is, pretty clear. And it starts with mental availability and physical availability of the product, and how we kind of go from there. And then all of our kind of key strategic segments that we're really targeting, you got to really click into. A lot of our category is driven by switching. A lot of people who are the most loyal to Pepsi, right? If someone drinks 20 Pepsis a month, they're also drinking 10 or 11 Cokes a month. And, and so it's probably easier to grow our business by getting somebody to drink 2 or 3 more over from there, rather than out of the category. It's common sense, right? And so, and so that's where we were. So we said we clicked into our most frequent consumers to really find some insights. And that's where we extracted this idea of unapologetic enjoyment. And they live their lives with these moments of unapologetic enjoyment where they're, clapping at the movie and they're dressing in the head to toe in sporting events and doing all this kind of fun stuff. And so we said, hey, maybe there's more we can do there. And so we've started to kind of inspire kind of a whole, we have multiple facets of growth between our zero sugar business, our regular business, our flavored business. Nitro Pepsi is to recruit new people into the category, right? And so we have all these different kind of levers that we can pull from. And so we have these things, we have this process every year we call AOP, which is our annual operating plan, where we have our, hey, here's our big bets. We're going to launch this in March. We're going to be on the Super Bowl with that. We're going to do this for the summer. And then those are the kind of big anchors. And then you have what I would call your cultural things that just kind of happen more organically. So we always do a lot of social listening. I encourage everybody to kind of get deep in culture ourselves, and that could inspire things, whether it's our Pepsi mic drop NFT, whether it's coming up with a salient content, this the mess we miss that was right out the other side of COVID, this really fun spot that we had coming out with all that. And so making sure, just as things are happening in the world, that we understand, hey, well, what would our point of view be on this? Or is there something fun we can do and kind of inspire a new brief and find some rich creative tension with our agencies and our internal teams to start to noodle on it a little bit and have some fun.
Yeah, totally. I really love the fact that you guys are trying to react on the culture and then incorporate all the products with the culture. So I think one of the most really hard thing is Pepsi is an existing brand, right? So we're not really creating a new thing. So I think how do you kind of grow it out of what image people already had is kind of really I think you did such a great job as per to this. I just basically mentioned to you that I feel like Pepsi is such a younger brand compared to some other competitors. I guess what does your content diet look like to make you feel you can come up with the best marketing strategy to keep it young and fun? And how do you kind of help people to connect Pepsi with a lot of really new interesting things compared to like the old image of like what it looks like previously?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think listen, I think every brand, to really, if you want to connect with culture and you want to be moving quickly, you need to see the world as they see you, not how you see yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean, every brand, every company, everyone somewhere has a sheet of paper, a positioning document. We stand for this. We're all about that. And that's all good and fine. But you also need to pressure test it. If
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the world doesn't see you like that, like, then you have work to do and you got to close that gap, right? And so I think brands need to have a healthy self-awareness, and really understand how the world sees them and have the confidence to embrace that. You know, one of the things we did early on, one of my first things I did on the Pepsi brand was this campaign that stemmed from one of our, what some would view as our greatest weaknesses, which is the most times that Pepsi is often served as an apology, where someone goes to a restaurant, they order our competitor's product, that restaurant pours Pepsi, and the server says, "Is Pepsi okay?" Which is a horrible interaction, that someone's going to ask a question about, you know, your brands, and why wouldn't it be okay? And so we addressed that head on and said, yeah, of course it's okay. So we got Cardi B and Steve Carell and Little John and did a really fun Super Bowl spot, really playing on this Pepsi's more than okay, is really our first thing. And it stemmed from the healthy self-awareness of saying, hey, this is how the world sees us. We can talk to ourselves all day about how we see ourselves and our strategy, but like, this is real. Why don't we address a cultural truth? Same thing with the burger campaign you brought up that we did better with Pepsi is, you know, well, Pepsi tastes better with burgers, and we know that. Guess what? The top 3 burger chains don't pour Pepsi. Let's lean into that creative tension and really do something there. So it always starts with having a healthy self-awareness as a brand on how you can really start to really impact culture, is just acknowledging, having the confidence to acknowledge it.
I have a random question. What do you view as like your unfair advantage, or like say quote unquote superpower, like as a leader or like as a person?
My superpower. It's a great question. I use that question with my team a lot. I'm like, oh, what's your superpower? What's your one thing? I don't know. I think it's I like to I mean, creativity, I'd say. I'm definitely wired a little different. I got like a creative outlook and brain that I always look at stuff. But I think it's this ability to kind of, you know, see around and simplify. It's a combination of where the creativity meets this idea of strategy and kind of simplistic storytelling. You know, a lot of what makes me tick is just simplifying what I think are otherwise complicated things and just getting to like, here's the crux of the very simple human truth. Like everybody knows, you know, this or that. And like, how do you simplify things that are very simple, that could be otherwise complex, and use creativity to really help solve really hairy strategic business problems? As you think about, you know, coming into a water portfolio, it says, hey, there's all these places to grow. Where do we start? Or, hey, Pepsi's in decline. Help. What do we do? You know, and being able to kind of systematically look at it and say, okay, here's kind of strategically what we need to do. And then here's creatively what to bring into the equation to bring it to bear. And then I think the last is then that entrepreneurial spirit that you talked about earlier, of like having the scrappiness to actually like do some of it. You know?
Yeah, totally. I'm literally like taking notes. I'm like, I just feel like, yeah, like I think it's like super like interesting that you mentioned, like, you know, number one, it's like know yourself, like, you know, understand like how people see you. And then number two is like strategically, like, you know, like what we should do as a brand. Like you know, like you mentioned about like, you know, simplify things. I feel like that's like a really good skill to have, because most people like overthinking on like a lot of things that doesn't really matter, but like really, yeah, I feel like those are really good skill to have.
It's one of those things, Grace. We do I do a session every year with the interns on storytelling. So I'm also a big proponent of storytelling, and not like advertising storytelling, but like PowerPoints, internal, like how to sell, how to talk to your ideas. And so much of it is just simplifying, you know, what you're really trying to get at, and like, what's the core message here? Where are we going? And how, you know, there's a lot of like tips and tricks and principles along the way. But so much of it is just bringing everyone through your thought process, making sure it's relatable, and going from there.
I'm gonna ask you one really hard question. Maybe like, I don't know
Sure.
if you want to say. Okay, so you're right now, you're like a CMO of Pepsi. You're like super successful. I'm sure like before that, like, you have many other job offers from, let's say, like the Google of the world. Like that looks like really young and sexy, but like, I'm curious, like, why do you decided to like stay in Pepsi for over 10 years, and like what drives
Yeah,
you for that?
no, it's a great question. It's not a hard question at all. And listen, it's something I'm always, like anybody, you're always looking and seeing what's out there, and you'd be silly not to take a call from somebody that's coming in. And listen, I think it's one of those things where I'm somebody who I want to be challenged. I want to be learning, and I want to really enjoy what I'm doing. And as you think about the type of marketing, I like to do very culture-led marketing, very bold kind of stuff that is fun. And when I think about the breadth of brands we've had here at PepsiCo, and the approach we have to marketing, and where, a lot of companies, marketing as a service function rather than kind of the driver of the business, right? Support function, and so it's really just trying to understand the role of marketing. And I've, they keep moving me into new jobs, where I get refreshed every so often. Right now, this job on Pepsi has been the longest I've been in any job at PepsiCo. I've changed jobs every 2.5 years. I've had multiple different roles. So I feel like while I've been at one place, I feel like I've had so many different jobs now. That being said, of course, yeah, there's a lot of, new business challenges and other stuff to check out. And of course, if the right thing, comes across, I'd be silly not to look at it. But that's right now. I've had a great, run at PepsiCo here over the last handful of years, and I've been enjoying it as well. So as long as I'm enjoying it and I'm learning, like that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, totally. I feel like as a CMO in Pepsi, it's basically like the CEO or CEO of many other companies, as like I wouldn't say solely depends on marketing, but like there's a lot of, as you mentioned, like what role does marketing play, right? Like let's say if you're in a SaaS software, like I think marketing is super important, but it's really hard to like, position yourself as like a customer facing role, or like, actually talk to the consumer, like creating these cultural relevant
Right.
things to the world, right? Like, I definitely feel like that's like a really great point to like consider when you're like choosing jobs. And I'm curious, like, now you're like a team leader. How do you kind of like shape your team? Like, how do you like who do you recruit? And like, I guess like what function do you personally really pay attention to train? And like, what like how do you, I guess,
Yeah.
manage?
Yeah. I think it's funny, as a leader who's been able to build teams from scratch, or you inherit teams, you rotate people in and out. There's a lot you learn about talent management. And I think back to my comment earlier about self-awareness. So it starts with, you need to be self-aware yourself as a leader, what you're good at, and also what you suck at. And you need to surround yourself with not what your gut may tell you is like people who are exactly like you, but ideally people who complement and round out and balance. And you need a diverse, and you talk about diversity, it's really important as you build a team to bring in diverse skill sets, mindsets and ways in, from backgrounds, experiences, and all of that, so that you have the right creative horsepower to see around the corner, solve a lot of the problems that you're doing. Skill wise, obviously in marketing, here at PepsiCo, we have everything from strategy and innovation and insights, all the way to the creative side and the brand communication stuff, all the way to the commercial side of the business, which is more like, going through sales data and working with our Walmart team and all that kind of stuff. And so depending on which part of the business you're on is where you'll need to flex and grow that side of your brain or marketing acumen. And, I'd say I spend a lot of my time really helping to drive on the comm side of it all, on the creative side, because a lot of times that muscle, I don't know, is where it needs to be, I think, with a lot of people in terms of pushing the envelope enough. A lot of people in a big company get defeated very quickly, or how to work with an agency to push for better work, rather than the things that originally come over and things like that. Whereas a lot of the other stuff can be more cut and dry around, hey, here's the sales data. Let's, now again, there's a lot to be learned there too on the storytelling of how you tell the numbers and what charts to show and how you do all that. And then same on the innovation side around, what testing and consumer testing we're going to do and what products we need to come up with and all that. So I spend my time across the whole mix, I would say, of it all, but it really starts with, you need a blend of people who know what they're doing and people who are learning. You need a blend of different backgrounds and experiences, and you need people who complement your own skill sets so that you have the right blend. And then what you need to do is, once you have that kind of hodgepodge of ingredients, you need to find a way to click and get everybody to work well together. And whether it's through a team offsite, whether it's through fun team culture activities and bonding, that's where it all starts to kind of mix and come together.
Totally. How do you recruit people? Do you recruit based on if you feel like they could be like a culture fit first, or so you can train them on the basic skills, or do you recruit people that are know exactly what to do? However, it's hard to manage or something.
Totally. I am huge on culture fit, more than, obviously you need a certain level of skills to do the physical nature of the job, but a lot can be learned, I'm convinced as well. And I look at the intangibles more than the tangibles. So somebody's drive, somebody's demeanor, how they interact with others. Is it someone you'd want to have a beer with and hang out with? It's just a lot of those kind of things. In addition to, it depends on the nature of the job you're hiring for too. Some you might need a very specialized skill set here and there, but for the most part, it really comes down to, all the other stuff, because that's what's going to differentiate somebody. And ironically, that's not what you can see on someone's, resume or LinkedIn profile or whatever. So it's kind of cool.
For sure. By the way, where does your drive come from? It seems like you're always quote unquote hustling, but you're always doing something new and then trying new things. I'm curious, what is,
it's
where
a
does
good
your
question. It's a great question. I haven't really thought much about it. It's probably, I'm very curious, and like I said, my brain is always thinking and moving. And as a marketer, you want to experience as many different things as possible. So taking 10 steps back, if you were to map and look up creativity, what is creativity? Is basically the linking of two unlike ideas together. And that's what makes something creative. It says, I take this and I apply it to this. I took the light bulb and I've applied it to this execution. And now we've made this kind of thing, whatever it is, right? And so, as you think about being curious as a marketer, the more things you expose yourself to, the more it might inspire a weird connection in the back of your head to some other thing and say oh my God, perfect example. Last night, this is I don't even know why I'm sharing this, but super random. I went to a WWE wrestling match at Madison Square Garden. I am not a WWE wrestling fan. I don't know much about it. I went just to check it out, and it was really eye-opening and very cool just to see. And I was invited there with some folks and just was able to check it out. And it was just going to, I've been to a NASCAR race. I've been to just trying to experience new things that you never know, especially things that you don't normally experience on your daily basis. That I think helps you become a better marketer, be more curious. That's where I kind of went down the rabbit hole of Web3, frankly, a while back, where I'm I don't know any of this stuff. And then I said, this is really interesting. And I kept learning and doing. And now I'm deep in it. And I have 100 NFTs and do a bunch of other stuff. And
100 NFTs.
Yeah, it's so I'm in it, and so it's just, you never know where you're going to feel inspired and be interested. And so I think it's just interesting just to try new things, especially with the way technology and platforms, TikTok, all this new stuff's coming up. It's always just good just to try it out. And even if you, just to learn.
Totally. What does your content diet look like? It sounds like, you had a lot of inspiration from real life, the boxing match, or how do you do you read the news every morning, or do you read the ads weekly, or
That's funny. I need to read more in terms of books. I buy a bunch of books and I start them and then I never have the time to go as deep as I want. I do a lot of short form content reading. my phone right now has a million, alerts and hey, from text messages to news alerts to, posts and stuff. I read a lot of my feed through my social feeds. So I read on like Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the usual kind of suspects. Sometimes I'll just get lost on TikTok and just kind of start going like this and then look up and I'm like, shit, it's been like an hour. What am I doing? It kind of sucks you into the vacuum, so it's just like anyone, you poke around, you look at stuff, and I'll get the news feeds and I'll click into stuff as appropriate or as I'm curious or interested. And then other times I'll just go deep on something if I want to learn or figuring some stuff out. Sometimes by accident, I'll just kind of get into it. So yeah.
Totally. Like, how do you kind of like formulate like what you have learned into like a strategy? Like I know that like you mentioned previously, like you got a lot of these like when you are like at night, like when everybody's going to sleep, and then you would like sometimes like have a light bulb moment.
Yes.
I'm curious, like how do you like, I guess, like turn what you think into a strategy, and like how do you, yeah, like for example, the Pepsi NFT launch, or
Yeah.
these like sneakers out job for like these like unique products and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So a lot of times I know I have a gut, right? Like, so creatively, I'm like, oh my gosh, as I'm learning about something, and when you talk about those creative connections, it's like, boom, the spark happens. You're like, all right, there's something here. And I always call it like a nugget. There's a little nugget or a little creative spark idea there, but I don't know what to do with it yet, right? And I'm kind of like, all right, well, could Pepsi get in there like this? Could they get in like this? Should we do whatever? And kind of I start usually kind of torture myself and think about it a little bit more and say, okay, maybe this, that. And then it gets to a point where you say, like, you know what, let's take a crack at it. And I need to start to bring my team and our agent people into some of this initial ideas because they can build it, make it better, push it, stretch it, pressure test. And so then we start talking about it. And that's this concept, I call it round zero, where it's like anyone can kind of bring like a little brain fart, a little idea nugget into the table that's got some really interesting creative tension and say, hey, is there something here? And then we pressure test it, we torture it a little. And then when we get it to a point where like, there's something here, and then I say, okay, cool. Can you come back with a couple ideas that could a couple ways in? Let's talk about it. And then off we go. There are times where I have the full long-term, like, hey, here's something I can clearly see the end game of XYZ of how this will look. We need to do it like this. Let's go. And then I just need to make sure I inform and get the right people involved and inspire everyone to understand, to see what I'm seeing. Because at the end of the day, I can't do any of these things myself, right? I need a bunch of people to really help as we're doing a lot of it. So a lot of it just depends on the nature of what it is, but it always starts with little ideas. And sometimes I'll scribble little notes down and things like that. A lot of people like have their little notebooks, and if you were to look through my notebook, it's got all sorts of fun little things
Ideas.
that I write down, and I can't even read a day later because my handwriting's so horrible and all that stuff.
I'm sure it's not horrible, but anyway, so I'm curious, like, let's say like if you and I are creating, let's say like a coffee company or something, let's say like we're creating like, Todd and Grace coffee, like what should we do? Like like, should we create the product first, or should we test through marketing first?
First, I would say, okay, so let's make Todd and Grace Coffee Company. Sounds delicious. So I'd first start and say, why are we making a coffee company? What is unique about our coffee that no other coffee has? Or why should a consumer, said another way, choose our coffee over Starbucks or Folgers or whatever the hell we're going to go up against? And then so it gets down to like, why do you exist? Back to that like Simon Sinek kind of golden circle way, and the value proposition of really understanding what you're trying to do. Got it. So we're making coffee on the mission to blah, 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 and do this. Okay, cool. So then it's a matter of, we know what we're aspiring to do. Well, then how the hell do we want to do it? And are we going to make it ready to drink coffee in a bottled beverage in the grocery store? Are we going to make it at home where you put the scoops in the coffee maker? Is it a cafe like a Starbucks? Is it, there's a million ways we can make our coffee company, and there's business implications and margins and stuff you got to think through on each of that. It's okay if that's then the next thing. And then, okay, then what does the logo look like? And how do you want it? And so it's, as I think about the time going back to starting BUBLY sparkling water, for example, or Life, any of these brands of Stubborn Soda, I've started a bunch of new brands and products. It always starts with, you need the real consumer insight. You need to make sure it's consumer led. And you need to have a distinctive point of view. And then from that, then the design should stem from that. The product focus should stem from that. It should all ladder up to the same thing. Like, again, if you're a coffee company that stands for X, but the product is made with crappy ingredients over here that only do Y, or you can't communicate it in a really sleek brand look and feel, but it's charged this much for the product, so you need it all to kind of correlate and connect back to a single idea. And it really starts with, like, why are we doing it? Which we can start a coffee company. We should do that.
We should totally do that. And okay, so when I think about these things, I think probably the opposite of you, right? Like, I mean, I love like how you think, but like, I'm curious, like, let's say like right now, I feel like all the brands are doing, say, TikTok challenge, like maybe like you do like a purple Coke or something, right? Like like basically what's trending, right? And then like for the Gen Z community, I know Pepsi has like identified, like some of the older generation are like more like diehard fans of the product. So like I guess maybe that's why those doesn't exist like yet. But like I'm curious, like like in terms of like the trending strategies everybody else is doing, or like let's say collab with like a influencer or something, like Dunkin' Donuts did with like Charlie D'Amelio, or like do like a Charlie, I don't know, like coffee or something, like like tap into like the younger trend. Like I'm curious, like what do you think of those strategies, and like what are some like like something that like you feel like most people are missing?
Yeah, I think the creators and a lot of the names that you mentioned, I think that is the forefront of everything that's coming. I think the fragmentation of the media landscape, and I mean, you've probably heard me talk about how much I hate the word advertising and the paid media approach and all that stuff. I think is like the wrong way to only focus. And so I think there's a lot to be learned and a lot of really great opportunities with the creator economy, and whether it's platforms like TikTok or YouTube or NFT projects or anything in between. I think the watch out is know why you're doing it. What a lot of brands do is they have what I call like shiny penny syndrome, where they just go like, oh my God, Charlie D'Amelio, so hot right now. Let's get some of that. Let's go put our brand on that. Like that's not an idea, right? Kabe Lame by himself is not an idea. Doing something with him is an idea. Knowing why you're doing something with, and so getting to understanding why you need these creators and what you want them to do, and then making sure then if you do decide to move forward with any of these creators, making sure that you're very authentic in how you do it. What the watch out is, nobody wants, the creator doesn't want to ruin their own channels and everything they created by, and that's like, today is brought to you by this company X, and it feels very forced, and then their own community is going to blow them up and be like, oh, you're a sellout, you don't get us anymore, whatever. And so having the confidence to give them enough leash to do their own thing with your brand is what's needed if you want to go down that route. So there's a lot of benefit from doing it, but you got to also know why you're doing it, and not just because they're just like the coolest name you just heard about.
Totally. When you're thinking about the long-term strategy versus like short-term strategy, like how do you kind of like, both like creating the quick buzz all the time, compared to like, like long-termly, like we're building a sustainable brand. Like how do you kind of like balance that out?
Yeah, I think you got to look at short-term and long-term with everything. And if you're just chasing the latest trend or latest thing without knowing why, then you don't have a strategy, right? At the end of the day, strategy is long-term, and you should have little beats to execute along the way. Everything we do is very strategic on Pepsi, even if it feels a little random, like it is all mapping up to very strategic goals, different parts of our business. We're trying to grow with our consumer cohorts and do it in the right way. And so you need that long-term strategy to understand why you're doing certain things and where you're going. And then the how, that's the stuff that can change every single day of what the execution looks like and all of that too. So you got to balance.
When you're thinking about, let's say like, tapping into the existing audience who are, like you guys did like 1,000 consumer feedback, right? Like, so you guys basically research like those are like unapologetic people. And then like maybe there are more in like a certain demographic that's like, the age and then the location, stuff like that. And like, but like, compared to the audience that like, that's like fast growing, like the Gen Z community, like how do you balance out the exist, like we're serving the existing audience, but also speak to like audience who may be interested in us?
Yeah, it's another great question. And that's a lot of big legacy businesses like Pepsi or who've been around for a while. You have this perform while you transform kind of notion, right? It's like, hey, we have all these great people. They keep us afloat. They buy our products. It's great. Guess what? Every year they get older and older and older. And if you're not talking to the younger folks as well, you're going to be dead in a handful of years with your brand. And so you need to talk to both. And you need to do a little bit on both sides. Now, the great news is, A, we have a big portfolio here at PepsiCo, which helps take some of that pressure because we can still capture, frankly, bubbly sparkling water is the people who, sources a lot from diet cola, right? And so people who aren't drinking, who wanted the, different kind of levels of permissibility with kind of what they're drinking and things of that sort. I think it depends on the different consumer cohort you're going after and do that. I think what's great is what we were able to identify from our core cohort is that, it's funny, a lot of my predecessors came in and were saying, hey, we got to go young and Pepsi's the next generation and we got to be young, and which is great, but you got to also know why you're doing it and do it in an authentic way. And what we found is there's a psychographic truth of this, the unapologetic enthusiast that we talk about, that it doesn't even matter that if somebody's 50 years old or where they live geographically or what their background is, the insight is very relatable as a human truth, whether you're 22 years old or 57 years old, and whether you live in California or Minnesota or wherever. Hey, there are moments where you just got to say F it and put your enjoyment at the forefront, even if it's in the face of constraints or judgment. And there can be little life moments, and that's totally fine. And that's what we've decided to kind of wrap our brand around. And really, it's been a big turning point for us as we've really been able to turn the ship.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I mean, I still remember like when I was watching your lecture or like your master class on like brand innovation, I was like, I see like basically an older lady just like standing up and like us sitting. I was like, it's really funny. And then like it is like unapologetic enthusiast, basically reflecting an image. And
yeah, totally. And it's one of those things that it's not like we're not targeting old people. We're targeting mindset, it's one of those things. It's when you think about it, think of that idea of like, you've been to a concert, right? And you've seen that moment where like the person in the row in front of you, no matter what they look like, no matter who they're with, that moment, they're dancing, they're vibing with the music, feeling it. And you kind of look over at them and you're like, okay, what, you're like, cool, you're in your jam, like you're so comfortable and you're prioritizing your enjoyment of the music in that moment, even if everybody else can see you, because it's like, yeah, I don't care if I dance funny or I don't care what you think. I care that I'm here seeing this person perform and it's so freaking awesome, and let's go. Like, and that's awesome. And that's kind of inspiring to be like, okay, I'm going to dance too. And then it's infectious. It's an unapologetic enjoyment.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we'll jump into the fire round. So like number one, what's your favorite book?
The Tipping Point is one I think was really interesting. And also, if I'm going like fiction books, The Catcher in the Rye.
Okay. Who makes the biggest impact in your career?
I'd say early on when I was at PepsiCo, one of my first bosses here, this guy John Galloway, who he ran the sports group at the time and brought me in. I was his intern as an MBA intern, and really a lot of the ways he leads and kind of celebrated his team and I thought he liked doing big, bold things and just kind of disrupting. I learned a lot from that experience, and I thought he was a great leader.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Who would is this a dead or alive or just only alive?
It's your party.
It's my party. Well, I don't want to bring a bunch of dead people, I guess, but it's okay. None of the question. Who would I bring to my dinner party? I would have, let's see, Shaquille O'Neal. I just think I'm a huge Laker fan, but I just love, he's just a bundle of energy and personality. I think he'd be fun. I'd love to have, I don't even know. I mean, obviously I'd have some family there. Clearly my wife and my kids, if I was able. I don't know what kind of dinner party we're talking, how late it is, what we're eating, is it formal or not? There's a lot to be done there. I'd have, maybe like a musician or somebody who's like a bit more of or something like I don't know, like a Ben Folds, or somebody who's like got a little bit of a different kind of just creative kind of bent on some stuff. If we're going with the dead crew, there's a whole bunch of people I would probably bring back to that party. But I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I'd probably also, dinner party wise, that's what, for my ideal dinner party wouldn't be that fancy and everything. We'd probably be, maybe it'd just be a small carvery at like the Taco Bell drive-through or something, like I don't know. Pretty chill. Get a little Mexican pizza, Crunchwrap Supreme. Come on.
Yeah, and Diet Coke. I'm just kidding.
Oh, come on now.
That Pepsi.
That's it.
Where can we find you outside of work?
Outside of work, I play a lot of tennis. I was a competitive tennis player growing up.
Wow.
And I still play a lot now. I'm very out of shape, but I am trying to get back at it. So I play a lot of tennis. I'm always chasing my kids around on the soccer field and basketball court and all their activities. I have 2 boys who are 12 and 9 right now, who are a lot of fun. Always doing all their stuff as well. So a lot of different things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Todd, for coming on the show today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.